This is the worst book I have read this year, Blood and Roses, Volume 1 by Callie Hart. It potentially might be one of the worst books I have ever read. It's definitely in the running. It's on the list. I'm just saying. I suffered through this thing. I should have DNF'd this thing many times over, but yet I sacrificed. I sacrificed to read the entire book, so now I can tell you all about it. Let me go ahead and give a disclaimer here. This is 100% my opinion. If you love this book, awesome. I love that for you. It wasn't a book for me. But again, just my opinion. All right, so let's get into it. So the basic premise of this book is that we have the heroine, Sloane Romero, whose little sister was kidnapped a few years ago, and she desperately wants to find her. And we have an enforcer slash assassin, it's not 100% clear, by the name of Zeth Mayfair, and he is the MNC of this book. So we open on a scene of where Sloane is going to a hotel. She is going to sleep with a complete stranger. Why would she do such a thing? Because she has been promised if she sleeps with this guy, the PI that she hired to try to find Alexis will give her information about Alexis. Little blackmail type of thing going on here. And she does it. At this point in the book, she is an intern as a trauma surgeon, and this takes place in Seattle. So she goes up there and it's all very like atmospheric. She's all nervous and this guy comes in, he keeps the lights off. You know, it's all very like, oh, let's play in the dark type deal. There's some, tying her up, some cuffs, things like that. And he goes to sleep with her and finds out, of course, she is a virgin. And he's like, pauses but keeps going, and she ends up ultimately thinking she has a great time. She never sees this guy. He either keeps her blindfolded or keeps the lights off the entire time, but she does mention that he has a very distinctive voice, like a very whiskey raspy voice. And the only time she even remotely sees this guy is when he's leaving. He's kind of silhouetted in the door, the light from the hallway, and she sees general build, things like that, but never sees the guy. That PI that she was doing this for in order to pay for this information on Alexis, her little sister that was kidnapped. Yeah, he was murdered. She went to go visit him because she hadn't heard from him and finds him murdered, and all the information on Alexis in her file was empty. So she's basically at a dead end. And we jump forward 2 years. So in the jump forward, we're really introduced to Zeth at this point. And he has like a weird setup. It's not really clear why, but he's like he lives in a warehouse. And he has this girl named Lacey that lives with him who is not mentally really well. She's really high strung. And I guess she just showed up one day and he took her in. But he wants you to know it's the goodness of his heart. This will come up as a constant refrain through this book because we must know he is bad guy trademark. Absolutely. He has to ensure that in no way, shape, or form do we think he has emotions, personality, or kindness. Got it. She's very mentally unwell. Well, if and he does not immediately answer her texts or her phone calls or lets her know what's going on, she loses her mind. Literally. Well, I guess that's what she does because she ends up trying to kill herself in the bathtub. He finds her like this and he's freaking out. Now, we also find out that Zeth, being the stranger in the hotel room, has kept tabs on Sloane. So he knows which hospital she works at. But he doesn't have a choice. In order to save Lacey's life, he needs to bring her to Sloane's hospital. So what do we find out about Sloane in this time? This is an alternating POV book, so we do get, Sloane and Zeth. The chapters are very weird too, by the way, you guys. Like some chapters were 2 pages long. Other chapters were like 20 pages long. It's like there's no consistency between them. But whatever. So we find out that Sloane is, she's gone through the rigors of internship and she's now basically, it's implied she's a senior resident trauma surgeon, which, this is not an easy program. So she's definitely got a hard side to her. And in fact, one of the reasons why she feels so tough now, according to Sloane, is because of what happened to her the 2 years prior. And she says, I traded a part of myself that night, extinguished the part of myself that would have prevented me from doing what had to be done. The very first surgery I performed was on myself. I carved out my weakness with a rusty scalpel and reveled in the glorious void that remained afterward. She's just so unemotional now. She's got it together. She's tough. Except about 60 seconds later. So Zeth brings in Lacey because, she's dying. And she is, of course, there in the ER when he brings her in and works to save her, and does. They say her name's like Cassie, assumed name, because they don't want, he's like, I'll pay cash. No psychiatrist. He's very weird. He's trying to avoid Sloane. He does not want her to see him because, he doesn't need that emotional attachment. He doesn't want her to know, I guess, it was him. And she's looking at him like, who are you? Where do you think you're going? Now, did you do this to her? Are you going to leave her? And this is the thing that breaks through. He gets really upset about it, and he turns and he talks to her. And, of course, it's been 2 years. She immediately recognizes his voice. Immediately. She's like, it was you. And he's, I know what you're talking about. It was you. And ultimately does admit, yes, indeed, it was him. And he's like, look, I'm going to give you my cell phone number. You let me know anything that goes on with Lacey. I got to get out of here. But don't you dare let her see a psychiatrist or any of those mental health people, because Lord forbid you get the girl with mental health issues, mental health help. Okay, she agrees. Hello, doctor. And goes and talks with Lacey at some point. Now, Lacey is freaking out again because she can't get in touch with Seth and she hasn't seen him. So she's like, please, 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 just let me contact him. And she's like, I can't do that. And ultimately does agree to let her use Sloane's cell phone to contact Seth. And she's like, okay, I'm going to let you contact him, but I'll leave my cell phone in this drawer right here. Don't tell anybody I let you do this. Of course, she goes back and Lacey's long gone, as is her cell phone. Shocker that. Well, who has her cell phone now? Seth, of course. And I had some issues with this. So this book has a lot of continuity issues and like plot holes. And they're not huge, but they're enough that it bugs me. This is one. Does this girl not have like a Face ID, thumbprint ID, a passcode? She works in an ER and she's just leaving her cell phone open because Seth is, of course, able to go through her entire cell phone and read all of her messages, mainly like the ones between her and her best friend Pippa, who is a psychologist. And so he says things like he's reading all our messages, and we get a treat, you guys. This is how he speaks in his inner monologue and his external monologue. The whole book, I had to put up with this. I haven't mentioned her to a single soul on the face of this planet, but then that's what guys do. We hoard our shit. Refuse to let anything slip. Chicks aren't like that. They gossip like mother hens. I'm absolutely wondering whether she's told Pippa how big my dick is, if she remembers how big my dick is. Of course she does, when the phone fucking chimes in my hand. The pain I felt reading these things, you guys. It was intense. So she ultimately texts her own phone. It's like, hey, asshole, I'm on a plan. I want my phone back. He's like, if you want your phone back, meet me at this place at this time on this day where something says. She shows up and there's a guy like at his apartment door, like doorman, bouncer, I don't know. And he's like, name? And she gives her name. And she walks in to a group sex party, you guys. Yes, this is what he decides to do. He intentionally threw this party knowing she was coming because apparently this is something he does. He's a gem, I'm telling you. Woo, they don't make him like that, do they? Anyway, so she goes and finds him and is like, hey, asshole, where's my phone? And he's like, I have it, but, I have something else for you, too. And she's like, I bet you do, but I don't want it. Lady doth protest too much. This doesn't last long. She is asking him too if he had anything to do with the PI that died. He admits, yes, I did. I killed the guy because, he's a dirtbag. And she's like, you ruined this for me. I can't find out about my sister. And he's like, he didn't have anything on your sister, but I'll help you. And basically starts to recreate the same scene and do the same stuff that, like, when they slept together in a hotel, like there's some knife play, some bondage, those basic things, because apparently that's what he's into. But of course, he has a rule. He has a rule. He has another couple come into the room to do a little voyeurism, and then kind of invites them into the play. And mind you, this is her second time ever sleeping with somebody, because of course she stayed celibate from when she lost her virginity to now, because we can't be a stereotypical trope unless we put every single one of them into this book. He tells her, I'll do anything, basically, but no kissing. Kissing's too intimate. I have come up to this conclusion. This whole, like, kissing too intimate thing, by the way, the things they did, they were intimate. The kissing being too intimate, this all stems from the movie Pretty Woman. Because if y'all remember, she was the hooker with a heart of gold, but she would not kiss on the mouth. That was too intimate. I think that's when this was invented, the kissing being too intimate thing. And it's like, can we stop cosplaying that movie now? Can we? She basically has this night with him. He has supposedly kind of looked for Alexis for the last 2 years, and with the whole, sleeping with him, the PI, and all that other stuff, and has not found her. But then, I'm not kidding you, like 6 seconds after this sex party, he finds Alexis. He knows where she's at. Does he go and call Sloane and say, hey, I know where she's at, here you go? No, he's going to leverage that. He's going to use that. You guys, I hated this man so much. Like, I'm at this point in the book, and I hate him. I really, really do. His, like, doorman guy, I guess that's his second in charge, his name's Michael, comes and visits her. He hands her over this envelope, and she's reading it, and it's basically a key to his house. It's like, hey, here's a key to the house, and to my house, and provide the key to yours, because you're mine now. And she's like, why the hell would I do that? This guy's an asshat, talking to the Michael guy that delivered this letter. And he's like, well, basically, he has, because remember, he found Alexis like 2 seconds after her. He knows where she's at. He has information on someone that you wanted information on, a missing person. And basically, this is his price. So he blackmails her. Way to start a relationship. I love relationships that start with blackmail, yes? While she does agree, and she hands over the key to her house. Of course she does. Because our girl that is, remember earlier how she said, she's just hard as core. She's been cut out with the rusty scalpel, all of that. Yeah, not hard. And here's ultimately my issue with this. Like, because Sloane they're trying to say on paper that she is tough. She's got mental fortitude. And yet everything in her actions and her dialogue, including her internal dialogue, fundamentally tells us that she has zero toughness, that she is weak. And at times, and this is the part that irritates me, very unintelligent on her decision-making process. Mind you, she's a trauma surgeon in Seattle. This is not something that is an easy to do thing. I imagine it takes both mental fortitude and a modicum of intelligence, if not a great deal of intelligence, in order for you to be able to be successful in that role. But yet, we're somehow supposed to believe that she just keeps making the world's worst decisions, fundamentally based off emotional, like, lack of spine. Ugh. So at the end of Act 1, she has given over this key to her house, has agreed, fundamentally together. He shows up at her house. He knocks. He doesn't use the key, but whatever. And that's the end of Act 1. So now we know at the end of Act 1, they are together in some semblance of a situationship. I guess that's the best way to put it. We get into Act 2, and this is Fracture. At the beginning of Fracture, we open on a scene of him torturing a guy. So we've left him at her house, and now suddenly we're on the scene of him torturing a guy. The reason for this is it was a very clumsy foreshadow, is that basically the guy he's torturing is like, hey, Charlie, your boss screwed you over. You went to prison for him. And everybody kind of knows, like, he set you up for that. Here's the thing about this. He is devoted to his mob boss Charlie, but it's obvious from the very jump when you first meet Charlie that Charlie will throw this guy under the bus in a heartbeat. So there's nothing surprising about this to you as the reader in this book. And flashback to where we left off at the end of Act 1, which is at Sloane's house. And he wants basically, he wants to own Sloane body and soul. This is not even bothersome for me because this is such a normal dark romance trope. I'm just like, whatever. Yeah, we got it. She had brought up her friend Pippa, that's the psychologist, about helping Lacey. So he's like, okay, we'll call her up. Call up Pippa, and as long as she keeps Lacey off the books, we'll potentially look at this. Of course, while she's on the phone with Pippa, he starts messing with her. Because, by the way, this man has never had a conversation with her, not one single time, without making it into a sexual thing. Love that. And ultimately, they, of course, go down and get it done, and he agrees, and so does Pippa about Lacey seeing him. They have more sex. This is not surprising. And she makes the cardinal sin of kissing him when they have spicy times because she gets so into it, right? He disappears off the face of the earth after she kissed him. Of course, she's not like, wow, what an asshat, or he's emotionally stunted. None of those things. No, she blames herself. Of course she does. She is an educated doctor who supposedly has emotional and mental fortitude and intelligence, and yet she's blaming herself. Because why not? Why not just make sure the women in our books have the spine of a wet rag? This is what I have to suffer through this whole book, between his internal and external monologue and hers. This is what hers says. I know why he disappeared off the face of the planet, and I'm aware that it's my own stupid fault. The kiss. I realize now that there's nothing more intimate than kissing someone when they're inside you. And as far as I can tell, intimate is the last thing Zeth wants this thing between us to be. I have many thoughts. None of them are charitable at this point because, of course, she has also come up to the pretty woman realization that kissing is just so intimate. Oh my God, can we let this go, y'all? Authors out there of the world, please stop writing that. Please. I pray that one of these days. At this point, too, in this act, we find out that Sloane, she is 26 years old. Y'all, I did the math. The math ain't mathin', okay? We're going to give you some creative license with this. But speaking of creative license, there's one thing I have to say about this creative license. Do your research. So I'm getting slightly off track here, but it's an important thing. Once upon a time, I was in the Marine Corps, and as part of the Marine Corps, we do learn some things about things like weaponry and things like that. So one of the problems that I have, and it's just maybe because it's my background, I'm not sure, but this stuff matters. Details matter. So it's not just the fact that the math doesn't math with her being a resident and at 26 years old as a trauma surgeon, but also it's Zeth. He carries what's called a Desert Eagle. Not that I know much about the mafia or enforcers or assassins or anything like that, but I can guarantee you he's not carrying one of those. Why? Because it's completely memorable. It would not be nondescript. It makes zero sense. It's huge too. It's like this big. It's the most. For some reason, that just took me right out. Like if you do these things where you just don't know stuff and you just decide to randomly insert something, it just took me right out of the book. And I know that's not supposed to be the point, so bad decision. But I feel like it just further emphasizes the crappiness that I had to deal with this, like the pain I went through. So at this point, we see zero growth from Zeth in this book. In fact, I will argue that we see almost zero growth from him in anything that he does ever in his life. This man has the emotional IQ of a toddler and the ability to cope of a teenage boy. which means not at all. Sloane, on the other hand, seems to be regressing in her growth now that we're into Act 2 versus actually becoming stronger or becoming more emotionally stable or any of those things. No, she seems to be competent and devoted to her career, and now she seems to be regressing to be basically a puddle of goo whenever Zeth is around. And it's like, whatever you think, Zeth. And likes to say things like, he's so smart. No, he's not. He's dumb. Y'all, there is no evidence this man has a brain cell in the vicinity. I'm telling you, he would need to take all his brain cells, rub it together to create a brain cell. There's no brain cells. This man is constantly surprised that he is outwitted, that he is tricked, that he is lied to constantly. He's supposed to be like the big bad enforcer, but he cannot seem to understand like when somebody's playing him, even though it's so obvious. It's so obvious. Bright is not him. This is not the man that he is. But somehow Sloane, the doctor, the intelligent one, thinks he's so smart. You know, basically street smarts. He doesn't even appear to have street smarts, y'all. Because street smarts, he would know when he's being set up. Does he? Nope. Okay. That was my little mini rant. Moving on. He also has this problem that Charlie is going to be out to get him, which is not good news when you're in the mafia. He finds out Alexis is at this compound, I guess in the flesh trade. Oh, yes. Yes, the flesh trade, which is trafficking as far as I can tell. Let's talk about Zeth and his boundaries. So Zeth does have some boundaries. He is an enforcer, an assassin, but we find out these boundaries sprinkled throughout this book, one of which is indeed trafficking in the flesh trade, you know, prostitution, that type of thing. He absolutely will not cross that line. Oh, he'll kill somebody. He'll torture them, but he won't cross that line. That is a bridge too far, man. That is just a bridge too far. So he's very disgusted that he finds out Charlie's been involved with this, and he also finds out Alexis is being held by this guy who specializes this at this compound down near LA. Remember, they're up in Seattle. So he tells Sloane, is like, I'm gonna go take care of this. You stay home and don't worry your pretty little head. But hey, by the way, can you watch my emotionally unstable roommate, Lacey? And she's like, I want to go with you. And he's, no. And fundamentally, he wins the argument. Because when it comes to them, any arguments, he wins every single one. So he brings Lacey over, and she's staying with Sloane. Where we find out Lacey's his sister. She's never told Zeth this, his biological sister. And mind you, Zeth has never mentioned he had a biological sister. Because, like, there's this, like, his family died, and he was with his horrible uncle, and then Charlie took him in to save him from the abusive uncle. But never in any of this backstory do we find out he had a sister, nor do I think he knew he had a sister, which, how does that work? So, again, continuity, plot hole problems, but surprise, Lacey's his sister, but she's never told him. But she immediately tells Sloane about 2 seconds after they've met. So, yeah, make that make sense. So now Zeth is on his way down to this compound. Sloane is stuck in Seattle babysitting his sister that he doesn't know is his sister. So in this story, we get these little time jumps, and a lot of them are primarily time jumps to back when Zeth was in prison. We find out Zeth went to prison for his boss. His boss, like, killed somebody or something like that, and Zeth took the downfall to be the good soldier. And it turns out, you know, no, he wasn't a good soldier. It's that Charlie set him up. The reason he finds this out is because Charlie sends him out to kill this guy by the name of Rick, who's been talking to motorcycle clubs about kind of what's going on with them. And for some reason, he decides for once not to do that, and he listens to what Rick has to say. And Rick basically tells him about how Charlie set him up and how he's getting screwed over this way. And he, for some reason, this time believes him. And he gives him money. It's like, hey, go hide. And now, because he has not done what Charlie has asked him to do, he's pretty much signed his death warrant. Zeth has. So this is the perfect time for him to head out of town down to that compound, which he does. In the meantime, he knows that Charlie's going to be looking for him, but it never occurs to him. Again, the Mensa candidate over here it never occurs to him that if they cannot find, Charlie cannot find Zeph, that he's going to go after Lacey, who Charlie knows, or even Sloane, who, let's be honest, at this point they probably know about. Never occurs to him, not once, until he's down there and somebody says something to him. Then he's like, oh my God, didn't I think of that? Yeah, why didn't you think of that? Maybe because you're dumb as a box of rocks. I don't know. Flash to Sloane's house, and she wakes up for some reason to find two men trying to carry Lacey out, like kidnap her. He's not just left her there with no weapon, no way to protect herself. She lives out in the middle of nowhere because you got to have that in order for this to work, right? So she grabs her medical bag, fills a syringe with something, and goes down and plunges her syringe of something, which apparently turns out to be a sedative, in the one guy. But remember, there's two of them carrying her out, so now she's like, oh God, now I have no way to defend myself. But ultimately, between her and Lacey, they're able to overcome this guy, get his gun, and make it work out. Now, she's like, oh, we have to get out of here. She's going to steal their car because they've disabled her car. They've got to find Zeph at this compound somewhere. We don't know where it's at, but we're going to go find him. This kills me, the decision making between Zeph and between Sloane. So she's like, I'm going to run and pack a bag, and then thinks, oh, my phone's upstairs. Should I get it? No, we don't have time. She has time to pack a bag, but not time to get her cell phone. Why? Because if she had her cell phone, she could contact Zeph. But because she doesn't have her cell phone, Lord, we can't contact Zeph. Now, I want you to keep in mind this, her not having her cell phone. This is an important detail because, again, we deal with plot holes. Yeah, they run out of there and she leaves the cell phone, don't know where to go, so she's just heading south, and Lacey's like, hey, I'll take care of it, makes some calls and finds out where this compound's at, or where she thinks it's at. They head that way. But she's not going to bring Lacey into this very dangerous situation, so instead leaves her at her father's house. And it turns out, again, it's like these random things that get introduced. Her father is a pastor, a preacher, and is getting along with Lacey great. But now Sloane heads out to find Zeph. Now Zeph's freaking out because he's just realized, because someone told him, that, hey, his girls could be in danger, and he's trying to contact them and hearing nothing. So he sends his guys out there, and they just find the house empty, nothing there. He's at this place, this compound that is very heavily guarded. Pretty much nobody knows about it. It's like, if you know, you know, but you don't know. One of those types of deals. All of a sudden there's like this whole commotion, and they're holding somebody at gunpoint because there's this person outside the compound. Who is it? Of course, it is Sloane. Because without any foresight or thought, or like, hey, how do I get in contact with Zeph? She just shows up there and then is shocked, I tell you, that she's being held at gunpoint. He's all pissed off, like, what the hell are you doing here? Because of course, even though he knew all of this was on, like, he knew that they could potentially be kidnapped, he finds out they are, he's still really pissed off at her for her decision making. Not his, to just, screw off to Nowhereville, leave her with no protection at a place that she was easy to find, with no way to ensure that she would be safe, watching his mentally unstable sister that he doesn't know is his sister. But yeah, sure, it's her fault. Okay. Yeah, we'll call it that. So she, gets upset because he's yelling at her and all this. And again, the insufferable human being that this man is, she starts crying. He says he scrubs his hand across his jaw, scowling. He looked dead set on punishing me for coming here a second ago, but now he seems torn. Don't do that, he says in a flat voice. Do what? Be mad at you? Of course I'm. Cry, he interrupts. Don't cry. That's a shitty, underhanded trick. Trick? God almighty, the gall of this man. I've been held up at gunpoint, threatened, driven across 3 states, shot at, and then threatened some more, and he thinks I'm crying to make him feel bad? And yes, he does. He does, you guys. That's exactly what he thinks. Again, we are now page 256 into this book when he says this line. 0 growth. None. Again, everything is physical to him. And I think what the author is trying to do here is be like, yes, he has this physicality to him. That's all he says he has, but he actually has emotion, and he doesn't like seeing emotions because it reminds him of that. And I think that's what the author is trying to do here, but it's done poorly. It's done poorly and quite clearly. So unfortunately, what you end up with is lines like that where you're like, I would like to go throw this book out the window now. So at this point, we are at the end of Act 2. So they are back together. They're at the compound. It's problematic because the guy who runs this compound, Hair Trigger, cannot suspect that they're there for the reasons that they're there. Charlie's after him, don't forget. It's not looking good for him. So we're into the third act, Bird. And this is really where I'd say the vast majority of the action happens. So I just want you to look at that. So this is third act, first two acts, third act. And I guess this is why there's a volume 2 versus just volume 1. Right at the beginning of the third act, the guy that was the doorman at the sex party or whatever, his name is Michael. He is there taking pictures. This is something I don't understand. So he's taking pictures of the compound trying to find Alexis. He's outside the compound taking pictures on the inside. And Zeth is actually inside the compound. He is now a guest of the guy that runs this by the name of Jacob. Why is Michael out there doing it? I can see when Zeth wasn't at the compound, but why is he still out there? Why is he out there now? That makes no sense to me. They catch him. And they're beating him up. And Zeth's whole response to that, even though it's his guy and he knows that they caught him and they're basically torturing, beating him up, is he'll be okay. He knows how to take a hit. He seems like a gem, right? There's nothing about this man at any point so far in this where I find him a redeemable human being. And for some reason, when she shows up and the guy who runs this compound, Jacob, is all like, who the hell are you? They decide to tell her the truth about who she is, just to use a fake name, that she's a doctor and all of that. And because, I guess they decided to stick to the truth. I don't know. Really, most of this third act, for I'd say the first several chapters, centers around him and her smashing pretty much all the time, various different ways. It gets boring in its repetitiveness, but it does give us an opportunity. They're supposed to be growing closer. I think that was the point of the author here. Because, we're trying to go on this arc, right? This journey to get them to an HEA. And instead, we get gems like this. You're so uncomfortable in your own skin. I just wanted you to break free from that. If I played a little game with you so you could do that, it's his turn to shrug now. I glare at him, my temperature rising. I'm not uncomfortable in my own skin. Out of the two of us, you're the one who isn't at home in his own body. A shit-eating grin spreads across his handsome, incredibly annoying face. Have you seen me, sweetheart? He spreads his eyes wide. I look like a fucking Abercrombie and Fitch model. Yes. We are now 2/3 into this book, and he still has the conversational wittiness and repartee of a teenage boy. And it is not delightful to me. Not even a little. And no growth. I'm seeing no growth. Supposedly Sloane is growing in that, she has more comfortable in her skin. They've got this mystery to solve. But his growth is that basically, I think the growth is supposed to be that he is growing emotionally closer to Sloane, even though all evidence to the contrary. I don't know. It's pretty bad. Again, the back and forth with this, Michael does end up saving himself, and he's like, well, my cousin's name's Rebel. Rebel is the president of a motorcycle club. And it turns out Michael's cousin is indeed this guy, Rebel, which, Zeth is shocked by, because of course he doesn't know, because again, Zeth does this whole, I'm so smart. Sloane believes he's so smart, but Zeth is constantly surprised by the actions in this book, which crack me up, you guys. I don't think I'm supposed to be laughing at these things, but I was. a very large portion of this plot is just like, how many times can we go and have spicy times? So many. But they do have conversations. They're painful. They're painful to read. They were painful for me. But these conversations consist of gems like, is this a where do you see our relationship heading conversation? God, no. Relationship? Even I hear the bitter edge to my laughter. We know nothing about each other. You're the guy who shows up on my doorstep and screws me whenever he feels like it. And I'm the girl stupid enough to let you do it. I choke on the words, hating them, but knowing they're true. Zeth's expression is blank as solid stone. He stands quickly, pulling on his clothes, and when he looks at me, the conflict warring in his eyes takes me by surprise. I know plenty about you, Sloane. All I need to know. If you know nothing about me, that's on you and no one else. All you've ever got to do is ask, and you're not the girl stupid enough to let me do anything. You're the girl stupid enough to not see what's standing right in front of her. I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, saying that I love you. So now we're taking trips from Notting Hill. Got it. I mean, you guys. Again, the emotional IQ of a teenage boy. A young teenage boy. A stunted young teenage boy. Also, during all of this, they've gone unprotected, and she keeps worrying about it and then doing absolutely nothing about it. So she decides to have this whole like, "Are you clean?" conversation. He gets offended, even though, yeah, duh. And again, he's so emotional and he acts like a toddler so many times. We're so far into this. There should be some growth. There should be some arc. But all we can get from this is he does have jealousy. He does have emotions, but they are usually anger and taking offense. Because, like, he puts out, this is who I am. When people believe him and treat him as such, when he does this is who I am, he gets upset at this. So it turns out they're going to have this poker game, this high stakes poker game where they use women as wagers at this compound in a couple days' time. And Rebel and his motorcycle club are coming to the poker game. So the motorcycle club shows up, and this is, as far as Zeth is concerned, this is bad news because, Rebel, the president of the motorcycle club, is a really, really bad guy. And there's this weird little scene where he sees this guy named Cade from the motorcycle club. And Cade is, I guess, somebody he had known back in prison. So we get another flashback to him in prison. And it appeared to Zeth that Cade was murdered in prison. And so he does not know that, in fact, he survived and was brought in solitary confinement. But I guess, like, I think they're doing some setup for the volume 2 for this book at this point, as we are, in the last 100 or so pages of the book. Because he talks about, like, how the DEA and FBI and everybody else were trying to get him to turn on his boss, this Rebel, the president of the motorcycle club, but he never did. And in the meantime, they know that this poker game will give them an opportunity to abscond with Alexis, the sister, so they start making a plan. I had to write this part down because it drove me so nuts, you guys, the continuity and some of the plot holes. At one point, she's so worried about everything going on, mainly between her relationship between her and Zeth, and not like this harebrained plan that they've hatched together. So she calls her. It's the middle of the night. She can't sleep. She calls her friend Pippa on her cell phone. Do you recall what I said earlier? On her cell phone. The cell phone that she left at her house when she fled. But now it has magically appeared at the compound. I know it's little things like that, but it just takes you out of the story, Of course, even though they're in the middle of doing this planning and they're trying to figure out exactly what he does, Zeth decides, you know what? Right now would be the perfect time to have some spicy times in the hallway where anybody could walk up on him. Because look, can't get through a single conversation with this woman without in some way, shape, or form having spicy time. Because Lord forbid he act like a human being. The Widowmakers, they are the name of the motorcycle club that Rebel is in charge of. They show up. It seems like things are gonna happen exactly as they thought. They're gonna have this poker game. Rebel, we have not seen him yet, by the way. But all of a sudden, they're freaking out, looking for Sloane, like, you need to come with us right away. Why? Because they're bringing in this girl that has been shot. And of course, she instantly becomes, I am ER doctor, trauma surgeon, super competent. I need you to get me, alcohol, gauze, swab, all these supplies. And they run off and do that. And she's been shot, I want to say 3 times. And she's working on her, and she sees this birthmark on her wrist. You guys know exactly who it is, don't you? I know. It's the sister. Of course it is. It's the sister. So the sister has been shot. She is laid out on the kitchen island while Sloane's working on her. Except Sloane freaks out and is like, I can't work on her. I can't do it. I can't. That's what she does in emergency situations as a trauma surgeon with all these years of experience. She immediately freaks out and it's like, I can't do it. But what saves her? Death, of course, because she says, I can't. He shakes me. I've watched you. I've seen you perform what other doctors have called miracles. You're better than this. I know you. You're an excellent surgeon, and you are not going to let your sister die. I glance wildly around the room, trying to dissociate and find a way to not be here, but Zeth takes my face in his hands and holds me still, locking me in his steady gaze. You've got this, he says. There isn't a shadow of doubt on his face. In this moment, he believes in me more than anyone ever has, and a flicker of hope kindles in my chest. I can do this. Oh, it's a good thing Zeth was there, or her sister would have died, because the competent trauma surgeon could not possibly save her sister without Zeth saying, you can do it, you can. Oh my God, total water boy moment there. Sloane has saved Alexis, but they need to go to the hospital because she is critical. Like, she's barely alive at this point, but she is alive. Well, of course, Jacob, the guy that runs this compound's like, no, because they ask questions if you do this. And here's the part, again, it took me right out, you guys. This will involve the police. And she immediately goes, the police are already involved. And they're like, what? What did you do? And she's like, yeah, she was shot with a Glock 22, 40 caliber. So clearly the police are already involved because that is the weapon that both the FBI and the DEA carry. A, how does she suddenly know this? B, which is ridiculous. B, they don't actually carry that. But again, it turns out that Jacob, I guess, was not buying Zeth's whole line about like, hey, I'm just passing through. And he is finding everything fishy. So he hauls him into his office, tells him pretty much, we found the guy, Rick, that, you didn't kill, who told us everything, as well as we know Charlie is after you now. So we're going to give Charlie your information and you're pretty much dead. Okay. Sure. I guess they forget that who Michael also just suddenly there in this conversation. Why? I don't know. Like, it has no, as far as they know, bearing on him. But Michael is the guy kind of charges in and breaks this up a little. And Zeth kills the guy, Clark, who is holding Sloane hostage, while they have this conversation. And she's all like, oh my God, you killed him. And then he has the opportunity to actually kill Jacob, the guy who could pretty much give him out to Charlie, give all the information, could pretty much destroy his life. And of course, he's like, again, we find, these fungible boundaries that Zeth has show up once again because it's like, I don't kill unarmed people or women or hurt women. So, yeah, Jacob lives, he does, knock him out or whatever, and they take off towards the hospital with Alexis, with the sister, because she needs medical care. Again, I feel like this is a decision, and this series of bad decisions this man has made, this is yet another decision that he is going to haunt, and probably again in volume 2. This is volume 1. They take off to the hospital. They get her, they save her. She's going to be fine, a touch and go for the first night. And then ultimately, yeah, she's going to be fine, but she is in ICU. And now Rebel shows up. Now, remember, Sloane only knows that her sister was kidnapped and apparently finds out that her sister is now a married woman and married to Rebel, the leader of this Widowmakers motorcycle club, and is quite upset about it because she's thinking her sister was absolutely forced. So she goes immediately after this Rebel guy. Is like, how dare you force my sister to marry you, which seems an odd choice, but okay. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Your sister said you were too busy being a fancy doctor to come to the wedding. We got married in New Mexico. It's legal. I didn't force her to do anything. And Sloane's like, okay, I'm confused. So they go and see Alexis, the sister, who she goes by, I guess, Sophia. And the sister immediately is like, whoops. So apparently was kidnapped at some point, but then was freed by Rebel, married him, but still chose to never talk to her sister or her parents to let them know, hey, I don't want you to live in agony. I was not kidnapped. That seems nice. Sloane admittedly is pretty pissed off and storms out, and this is fundamentally where we end, where Rebel's like, hey, I guess I'm your new brother-in-law, but we got the same taste in men, and the end. All right, so we left a lot of open threads. We left the thread of Lacey, who's hanging out at her parents' house, who has not told Zeth that she is his sister. Charlie is still looking for Zeth and wants to kill him. Sloane apparently has a job but doesn't have to call in or go to it. Okay, sure. Her sister somehow was kidnapped and then trafficked and then not kidnapped and then married the leader of a motorcycle club, one of the most feared ones, and never told her family that she was actually safe and good to go. Volume 2, I'm assuming, will answer all of these questions. And here's the problem. You could not pay me enough money on this planet Earth to read Volume 2 because Volume 1 was so painful. So yeah, looking at the overall of this book, I made so many notes. I have so many tabs. If I had to give it a star rating, maybe a 1 star, 2 star tops. No 2 star. I can't go that high. It's bad. So I did do a little bit of research because this is an author that is highly popular. She wrote Quicksilver, Brimstone, and apparently this book is actually a little bit of a reprinting. So this was some short stories, and that's where you get the 3 acts that were compiled like an omnibus into this book, and maybe Volume 1, Volume 2, and reprinted. So she wrote the fundamentals of this in 2015 and has just now been reprinted. So this is a new release, and this is her latest release. And maybe that explains it. Maybe I have not read Quicksilver, so you guys tell me. Maybe it is better than it appears, because this was atrocious. Just the writing was bad. I mean, as far as like the dialogue and the characterization of these characters, the inconsistencies were definitely bothersome and brought you, take you out of the story, which you never want that to happen. And the lack of character growth in this book, look, I love my romance, but that doesn't mean that it can be void of growth or a good plot. Even the plot itself was fairly thin, because it was like, how do I have a super thin plot, but also just punch it up by adding words, by adding one spicy time after another, some of which were just like, it started to get very repetitive. So it's not like, oh, that's hot. No, it's more like, again, and that's not what you want to happen. But the cardinal sin for this book, of course, was the lack of chemistry. There was no chemistry between these characters. When you have a romance book, that is an absolute fundamental. It doesn't matter if it's dark, if it's romantic comedy, if it's clean. It doesn't matter what kind of romance book it is, but you must have chemistry between your main characters, between your love interests. And when you do not, that to me is the single biggest cardinal sin outside of not having an HEA. Because if it doesn't have an HEA, it's not a romance. This one does technically have an HEA, or I call it an HFN, a happy for now. This one is not for me. It was a slog to get through. Maybe you guys saw something in it. I haven't, but this one, no. So many moments of no. So, yep. That is fundamentally that would be my reading and review of Blood and Roses by Callie Hart. Tell me what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you if you've read this, if you got a similar vibe from this book, or if you think I'm off my rocker, or tell me too, if you've read her other books, Quicksilver and Brimstone, which are supposed to be really, really good. Do you think that this is a symptom of like a writer that wrote this 10 years ago and she doesn't write this way anymore? Or what? Like, what is your overall impression? So yeah, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. And hopefully I do have another dark romance on deck for my next review, which has a completely different feel to it, and my reaction to that is completely different. Hope you stick around for that, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.